St. Louis tourism is back on track. We'll have details next on City Corner. I'm Steve Potter, and welcome to City Corner. Travel and tourism are getting better, that's for sure, after a tough year. And we'd like to welcome Brian Hall right now. He is the Chief Marketing Officer for Explore St. Louis. Hi, Brian. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Steve. Great to be here with you.
Brian, I was going to ask you to kind of explain what Explore St. Louis is, but I guess maybe the name says it all.
It is. It's all about exploring St. Louis, but we're the official destination marketing organization for St. Louis City and St. Louis County. We're responsible for conducting all the sales and marketing activity for this community to attract visitors of all types from not only around the United States, but under normal circumstances around the world to visit St. Louis. And we also, Steve, interestingly, because this is not customary for destination marketing organizations, but we run the Americas Center Convention Complex, including the Dome at Americas Center. So we have millions of square feet of space here that we manage and that we sell.
Well, Brian, go back a year or so. You talk about that big space, and it sure is. A year or so ago, that was a lot of empty space for a while, wasn't it?
It was. I prefer not to remember it, but since you brought it up, it was a really difficult time, not only for the tourism industry and us here at Explore St. Louis, but certainly residents of our community, in fact, residents from around the world. When we went into that shutdown mode in about the third week of March, I remember we had a big volleyball tournament that was ready to begin. And we started getting calls, the organizer did, from parents concerned about the pandemic, concerned about COVID. And all of a sudden, within about 24 hours, they made the determination that that event was going to be canceled. And from that point on, it was a whole new ball game in travel, tourism, and hospitality. Tens of thousands of hospitality professionals, Steve, throughout this region were furloughed or laid off. Restaurants were shuttered. Hotels were running occupancy in the teens. The industry was brought to its knees. And, no industry was more adversely impacted than travel and tourism by the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. But you see a lot of encouraging signs now, I know.
Yeah, we do. And so now that folks are increasingly vaccinated and we're reaching that tipping point of, if you will, of herd immunity, we're seeing a nascent recovery. It's very exciting to be witness to. It's being led, Steve, by leisure travel. Leisure travelers have shown an enormous amount of resilience from the beginning of this pandemic to this point. People are indicating right now that they're willing to travel, and family travel is on the rebound. One of the challenges, though, that we're experiencing is that while leisure travel activity is coming back, business travel activity has been much slower to return. So as a result, what we're seeing and experiencing here in St. Louis is peaks and valleys. So over weekends, Friday and Saturdays, in some cases Sundays, for example, with the Memorial Day holiday weekend, we see really strong performance over the weekend, but then occupancy kind of returns back to earth, and we're running in the 40s and the 50s midweek, and we continue to repeat that cycle. But encouragingly, event activity is returning to Americas Center. We've had an enormous number of, an impressive number, I should say, of amateur sporting competitions. We've had a total of 4 volleyball tournaments in the Americas Center since February. We've had Division II wrestling. We've had gymnastics competitions. We have upcoming gymnastic competitions. We actually have the U.S. trials that are going to be hosted in the Dome at Americas Center a little bit later in June. So we're seeing a return to event activity, which is really encouraging as well.
You know, what you said about people traveling again is true. I have a friend that owns a place that sells like motorhomes and campers. And I tell you what, there's one of the few businesses where their sales have really been up.
Yeah, that's been really impressive. I've been on the market for an RV for some time, and as soon as they go on the market, they fly off. So you're absolutely right. Outdoor experiences have been on the rise throughout the region. As a matter of fact, to that point, some of the most trafficked areas of ExploreSt. Louis.com, our website, have to do with outdoor activity. So earlier in the recovery process, going back a matter of a few months ago, we were seeing that people were increasingly interested in traveling, but they wanted to be outside. So that content became very popular.
Has that affected like where our tourists are coming from? Since less people are maybe flying and more people are by those campers or something. Do you find that most tourists these days are maybe, I don't know, within 102 miles as compared to before?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, at the beginning of the recovery, going all the way back to May and June of last year, we were seeing a very tight radius. People weren't going far from home at all. Staycations here in St. Louis, among our 2.8 million metro area population, it was a huge boost for us because people were just looking for hotels, for example, with swimming pools where they could have a nice experience on a hot summer day and get out of the house and cure a little bit of cabin fever. But quickly that activity began to impact all areas and all segments of our hospitality community, and they were getting out and about, going to attractions. Attractions figured out how they could put protocols in place and operate during the early days of the recovery from the pandemic, with protocols ranging from face coverings to distancing and temperature scans and the like. But we saw a number of attractions very successfully implement protocols that kept everyone safe and allowed us to return to the business of tourism.
So how did all this affect your marketing, or did it? You know, in your commercials or print advertising or whatever, did what we're going through influence the approach you took to promoting things to do?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, in the heart of the pandemic, when face coverings were a requirement, an imperative, and an ordinance here in St. Louis City and St. Louis County, we did not show any marketing with individuals that didn't have face coverings. So we had to go back out and reshoot a lot of our marketing activities so that we could have principal talent that were wearing face coverings, because we wanted to send the message loud and clear that whether you like face coverings or not, during that time period, they are required in our community. It is our expectation. If you're not in agreement with that, then perhaps this isn't the right destination or the right time for you to experience St. Louis. Obviously, those mandates have changed. The CDC has issued updated guidance that permits vaccinated people not to wear face coverings outdoors or inside, whereas unvaccinated people are still required and encouraged to wear face coverings. But we're starting to pivot our marketing right now and getting back to what we knew as normal back in 2019. And we're starting to relax the imperative of having principal talent wearing face coverings.
I'm sure that you're always in contact, I'm assuming you are, with people in your position in other cities, other tourism people across the country. I'm just wondering, did everybody have the same problems, or was it different in Denver than it was in St. Louis and it was in Philadelphia, or were you all going through the same thing?
A lot of us were going through the same thing. In fact, there was a lot of information sharing through an industry association known as Destinations International that we are a part of. I was invited to many sessions. Some of them I actually spoke during, and we exchanged a lot of information and understood that we were sharing a lot in common. And what I've described in reference to the nascent recovery of travel and tourism here in St. Louis is not unlike what's happening in communities across the United States. Some are a little bit more advanced. I'll give you an example. Like Florida rebounded much more quickly because a lot of their activity, let's face it, is outside. So they didn't have the same setback during the winter months that colder climates like St. Louis experience. So they're a little bit further ahead. But we're right in that area that the vast majority of destinations around the United States are in. We're seeing that boost in leisure travel. We're waiting for business travel to return, and we're seeing an uptick in new event activity and advanced bookings for the future.
Well, looking back over this last year, did you learn anything interesting that you hadn't thought you were going to learn before?
Well, yeah, I learned that you really need to have patience in reference to waiting for the opportunity to recover. It was really difficult watching the hospitality industry being brought to its knees. It was difficult hearing from my friends and colleagues that they were losing their jobs or they were being furloughed. Our workforce here at Explore St. Louis is far smaller today than it was back in 2019. So there's been hardship felt. So the lesson learned is that we need to be better prepared in the future, not only as an industry, but as a country, because it's not a matter of if a pandemic will return, but it's more a question of when. So let's make sure that we're much more prepared if we have to meet this again, God forbid. And I think that certainly our industry has learned quite a bit in reference to how to put the protocols in place to keep people safe.
Okay, we're going to take a break in just a second, but I'm wondering before we do that, I've heard a lot, a lot of restaurants, you talk about the service industry. I've seen a lot of ads, for restaurants, and heard that that kind of business is having a lot of problem getting people to come back to work or finding people. Does that seem to be a universal thing?
It is throughout the hospitality industry. So it's happening with attractions, it's happening with hotels, it's happening with restaurants. There is a bit of a labor shortage right now, and that's because many people that left the industry have found alternative forms of employment. And so we're trying to attract more folks to pursue careers right now in hospitality. And it's a great time. The industry is going to recover fully. All of the prognosticators right now are saying that business travel is going to return to levels previously seen in 2019. Meeting and convention activity will recover. Leisure travel is already largely recovered. So now's a really good time for people to consider careers in travel, tourism, and hospitality.
Well, Brian, when we come back, I just bet you've got some suggestions for us of some safe, fun things that we can do right now.
You bet. It would be my pleasure.
All right. We're talking with Brian Hall from Explore St. Louis, and we'll be back with that right after this on City Corner.
This is the story of a boy who didn't talk for a long time. The boy liked things to always be the same. Any changes would scare and upset him. The unknown was an unfriendly place. The boy was very sensitive to lights and sounds. So he built secret hiding places where they couldn't get in. The boy didn't like looking people in the eye. He wasn't trying to be mean, it just made him feel uncomfortable. Sometimes he would flap his arms again and again.
One day, I found out I have something called autism. My family got me help. Slowly, I found my voice and learned all the ways I could live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
It takes less than 1 minute to find out if you may have prediabetes, and you can do it here. So what are you waiting for? Just go to the site.
I'm Steve Potter. Welcome back to City Corner, and we're talking about things you can do in St. Louis. Brian Hall is the Chief Marketing Officer for Explore St. Louis. He's our guest today. And Brian, in the first part of the program, we talked about how this past year with the pandemic and everything has affected the service industry and a lot of other places too. The good news, according to you, is that we're headed in the right direction. But you said something a little bit earlier. You said not if, when. So we don't want to get too cocky about it, right?
Oh, that's absolutely right. I think we need to all be vigilant. And as we're recovering, we need to remind people that as you are out and about in our community, if you're not vaccinated, I encourage you to get vaccinated. If you're not comfortable getting vaccinated, then protect yourself because we do definitely need to be much more prepared in the future. But Steve, I argue that the travel and tourism landscape in St. Louis is poised for success like it never has been before. So it's really encouraging that during the pandemic, a lot of the projects that were underway from a construction and development perspective, they carried on. For example, Ballpark Village Phase 2 is complete. It opened in increments during the pandemic, and now people are coming out. They're going to full attendance at Busch in just a week or so. Welcoming the full complement of fans. Some 46,000 fans are going to be able to populate Busch and enjoy Ballpark Village. A host of new amenities are available at Ballpark Village. There are new restaurants, there are new bars, there are new public spaces to rummage about. It really is a great tourism asset in our community. And another development that took place right at the beginning of the pandemic, it opened. And that was all of the tourism activity over at St. Louis Union Station that has been pioneered and developed by Lodging Hospitality Management. So they've invested in the hotel. They've invested in bringing an aquarium to St. Louis, which has been just an enormous hit. It was only open about a month and a half to 2 months prior to the pandemic, but it reopened in May of last year. And they're welcoming scores and scores of visitors to that aquarium. And then, of course, we also have the St. Louis Wheel, brings you 200 feet above the skyline of downtown St. Louis.
Brian, I want to ask you about that. I've only been to Union Station once in the last year. I went there to get my COVID shots. So it wasn't the typical kind of visit, but I did kind of peek around and saw. I have not been to the aquarium or the wheel. What, the aquarium in particular, what can you tell me about that? The images I see just seem like it's incredible.
It is, and it's really cool what they did in reference to the design of the aquarium, because they recognized that obviously we're in the midsection of the United States. So what they wanted to do is they wanted to tell the story about aquatic life, beginning with the river and moving to the ocean. So you begin your experience looking at some of the native fish species that are typical of the Mississippi River, the Missouri River, inland United States, and then you move all the way to the sea, and you end up in Shark Canyon, where you're seeing the sharks. The kids absolutely love it. It's a great experience for the entire family. What I particularly enjoy about it is that there are lots of opportunities to touch. So as opposed to being the type of museum where you can't touch anything, this is just the opposite. They invite kids to touch, which is it's a lot of fun.
Oh, we've got a whole lot of things that I want to hit on, and we won't have time. That's a good sign that we've got too much to talk about, if you want to look at it that way. But also in the topic we were just discussing, there's a city foundry and the factory.
Yeah, the City Foundry is just reopening now, and that development was largely completed just prior to the pandemic. They put the brakes on for obvious reasons, but we're going to have a brand new food court at City Foundry in the not too distant future, and that's right in the heart of Midtown, right in the heart of the Innovation District. The factory is actually in Chesterfield, and the factory is going to be a fantastic concert opportunity, bringing people of the region together to experience any variety variety of performers that are going to be coming out to the factory. They're already putting the lineup in place, and that's going to be taking place beginning in July. So check out the factory because there are going to be some really exciting concert opportunities. And then,
What
of
about
course, there's more development in the pipeline. And that includes our Major League Soccer stadium in downtown St. Louis, and they're going to be set to begin their inaugural season in 2023. So that's something to look forward to.
And if you haven't been to the Arch this year, you're going to notice some new things there too.
I agree, Steve. And I tell everybody that I hear from St. Louisans all the time, oh, I've been to the Arch. I was there 15 years ago. I was there 20 years ago, whatever the case may be. Well, if you haven't been to the Arch in the last 3 years, you haven't experienced the transformed Arch grounds and the museum beneath it. It's a brand new museum. It's wonderfully curated. It's interactive. It's also hands-on. And it's a great experience for the entire family because it tells the story of the westward migration of the United States. And then you can, of course, take a tram ride to the top. The trams haven't changed. They're still the little 5-person trams that move you to the top of the north and the south legs. And you get to see views of the state of Illinois, views of downtown St. Louis from 630 feet high. It's really cool. It's a bucket list item. And then, of course, you've got the riverboats right there. And I just took a cruise about a week ago, and we had a great time. It's a 1-hour cruise. They take you north, they take you south. They talk about the history of the riverfront of St. Louis. And I highly recommend a visit to the Arch to any St. Louisan that hasn't been there recently.
I'm guilty of that, and I'm going to do it. What about Forest Park? We've got the zoo, we've got the History Museum, other places.
Yeah, it's just such a fantastic feather in our cap that we have a world-class park in Forest Park, voted the best park in the United States by readers of USA Today. And we have these world-class tourism attractions that call the park home, like the St. Louis Zoo. And there's all kinds of new activity. They're always changing things up. And there's a great dinosaur exhibit right now, Steve, over at the St. Louis Zoo that's been a hit with families, which I highly recommend. And they're also working on additional exhibits that they're going to be opening in the next couple of months. Then you've got the Missouri History Museum, where you can see the spirit of St. Louis hanging from the rafters. You can see the statue of Thomas Jefferson. And they have an exhibit that's going to be opening in August called The Sound of St. Louis, that is going to be all about the musicians that made their mark here in St. Louis, like Ike and Tina Turner and Chuck Berry and a host of others. And let's not forget.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Let's not forget the Art Museum. The Art Museum is world class, and they've got great exhibits in right now. In fact, a special exhibit called Nubia. So if you haven't seen that one, you want to check it out. And then the Muni is going to be coming back, very encouragingly, and they're going to be welcoming guests back in, I think it's beginning in July, and they're going to be putting on a summer series of performances, which is great news.
Hey, sure. I just want to share for people, 7 Brides for 7 Brothers, Mary Poppins, Smoky Joe's Cafe, Sweeney Todd, The Sound of Music, On Your Feet, and Chicago. So that's a pretty good lineup.
Oh, it's just amazing. We're so happy to have them back. And again, it's another world-class offering. Affordable tickets that people can purchase and come out and enjoy a great family experience beneath the stars.
I have a soft spot in my heart for Grand Center. It's been a few years now, but I used to work there. And I thought it was such an exciting place, and it kept getting a little better with venues and public spaces. And there are still things happening there too now, right?
Oh, absolutely. They're going to be coming back in a big way. The Fox Theater is putting a schedule together. We look forward to the resumption of activity with respect to the St. Louis Symphony. But one of the really cool activities that is going to bind together, Steve, the entire neighborhood is a program that the Kranzberg Art Foundation is leading, and it's called Music at the Intersection. And it's going to be taking place in a variety of those institutions up and down Grand. Some of it will be inside, some of it will be outside. I can guarantee you this, it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to be something that folks want to buy a ticket to see.
Brian, I don't know if you're responsible for these, you tell me. I've seen some TV commercials promoting St. Louis with some familiar faces.
Yeah, absolutely. That's our campaign. We call it the In the Know campaign. And what we've done is we've reached out to a variety of celebrities that grew up here in St. Louis and are very proud of that fact. And we invited them to work with us, to partner with us in creating commercials where they could talk about their hometown. The person who led it off, Steve, was Sterling K. Brown. We reached out to Sterling K. Brown, who was really hot and continues to be. He's a star of This Is Us. He plays Randall. And we didn't think he'd take us up on it, but he did. And we were so delighted. And not only did he take us up on it, he said, you don't have to pay me, just make a donation to my favorite charity, which is Matthews Dickey Boys and Girls Club. So we were honored to do that on his behalf. Sterling was the first celebrity to step up, then Jenna Fisher and John Goodman and Andy Cohen, Jackie Joyner-Kersee, Ozzie Smith, and a host of others. And we're so proud to have them be representing our community.
There's a lady on that commercial, and I don't know who it is. She's very outgoing and makes an impression. Do you know who I'm talking about? I don't know.
Jennifer Lewis.
That must be her. Who is she?
Jennifer Lewis is a fantastic actress that grew up in Kinloch, Missouri. She lives in Los Angeles now. She's a star of Blackish. If you've ever watched that series, she plays the grandmother, and she is a force of nature. She actually, I was at a commencement address at Webster University, and she delivered it, and she was a powerhouse.
We just got a couple of minutes left at the most. Brian, but there are probably a lot of things we have not gotten to. Things like the Magic House, and I saw Six Flags just reopened, I think 100%.
Yeah, and Six Flags, as a matter of fact, Kitty Radcliffe, our president, and I had the pleasure of being out at Six Flags this past weekend. If you can believe it, they just celebrated their 50th anniversary. So they opened in 1971, and they just marked the 50 years of operation. And I got to tell you, they just keep getting bigger and better. But they're an important part of our family-friendly culture here in St. Louis, and so is the Magic House. The Magic House has grown considerably, as has Six Flags. And it's such a cool organization where kids are able to both learn and play in a constructive environment. And Beth Fitzgerald, the president over at the Magic House, tip of the cap to her, because she's just done an amazing job.
Brian, I have to cut you short, unfortunately. I know we could talk for another hour about this, but what's the best way for people to find out about stuff?
Visit ExploreSt.Louis.com and do so frequently.
Any closing words of wisdom for tourist wannabes out there?
Be a tourist in your own town. And not only should you have some great tourism experiences, but welcome those family and friends from outside of the community to visit St. Louis and explore along with you. The reaction that we always get, Steve, is that people are amazed when they come here and they think, oh my gosh, we had no idea that there was this much to do, see, and enjoy in St. Louis.
Yeah, so be a tourist in your own town for sure.
Absolutely.
Brian Hall is the Chief Marketing Officer for Explore St. Louis. Brian, thanks for taking the time today, and we look forward to having a good rest of the year. How about that?
Here's to that. Thank you very much, Steve, for having me.
Thank you, Brian. Explore St. Louis. That's a good thing to live by. I'm Steve Potter. Thanks for joining us for this City Corner. We'll see you next time. Bye.